Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at how the absolute biggest construction projects in the world manage to keep from tearing themselves apart in the courtroom. We're talking about megaprojects, right? Massive investments of time, capital, and human effort. But as anyone in this industry knows, with that kind of scale comes a whole lot of friction. So today we're unpacking the concept of preventative medicine for these giant builds. Specifically, we're looking at dispute avoidance processes.
To really set the stage here, I want you to picture a scene straight out of a premium cinematic comic book. Imagine Arjun. He's a project director standing in a dimly lit control room, and red lights are just flashing everywhere across his early warning dashboard. We're talking cost overruns, delayed work packages, just a massive mountain of incoming claim alerts. You see, this is the crisis that hits when we ignore the early symptoms of conflict. Because megaproject disputes, they rarely just drop out of the sky. They fester. They grow from unresolved warnings, unclear decisions, weak records, and delayed intervention. And really, the sheer scale of these megaprojects is staggering. Think about massive jobs like the Palm Jumeirah. You've got incredibly complex interfaces, multiple contractors working right on top of each other, incredibly long timelines, and intense public pressure. In that kind of environment, conflicts aren't just likely, they are virtually guaranteed. The construction environment itself is a breeding ground for competing goals, which naturally paves the way for some incredibly high-value claims.
So we see this really clear escalation path, right? A destructive conflict dispute continuum. It starts with a problem, just an unexpected situation on site. Pretty normal. But then that leads to a conflict where people have completely competing goals on how to fix it. If you leave that unresolved, it solidifies into a claim, a formal request for time or money. And finally, when that claim gets rejected, boom, it mutates into a full-blown dispute, a formal legal difference of opinion. It's a complete chain reaction.
Section 1. Preventative medicine for projects.
So the crucial takeaway is that large projects need dispute prevention, not just dispute resolution. If we compare project management to healthcare, traditional contracts basically wait for the patient to get sick. They rely on reactive processes, things like arbitration and litigation. That's like trying to treat a disease after it's already ravaged the body. Modern dispute avoidance processes, or DAPs, act as preventative medicine. It's all about proactive conflict management, keeping the project healthy from day one. This preventative strategy actually spans 3 distinct phases. First, you have primary prevention. This stops conflict early by reviewing documents and having initial meetings before a single shovel even hits the dirt. Then comes secondary prevention. This treats emerging disagreements with regular site visits and early advice the second an issue pops up. And finally, tertiary prevention. That's where you limit the damage, resolving things in real time before the project spirals into that costly, relationship-destroying stage of arbitration. Think back to our comic book narrative for a second. You can almost hear the sheer frustration from site engineers like Ravi or contract administrators like Mira when technical disagreements, say over unforeseen ground conditions or a commissioning delay, are met with this wall of adversarial posturing. The work just stalls out. Without someone stepping in, a simple technical query quickly hardens into a massive delay claim.
Section 2. Enter the dispute boards. To stop this constant finger-pointing, we introduce our independent, neutral interveners. Think of them as the doctors administering that preventative medicine. Let's start with dispute review boards, or DRBs. A DRB is an independent panel, and they're usually set up at the very beginning of the project. So instead of being parachuted in when everything is already on fire, they engage in regular, scheduled site visits. They build an intimate understanding of the site's unique pressures, giving project-informed, non-binding recommendations to help everyone sort things out amicably. Imagine Dr. Rao, our seasoned DRB chair, sitting at a site table just covered in drawings and program records. By having an expert like Dr. Rao actually review the notices and minutes in real time, the DRB is able to separate the actual facts on the ground from the entrenched, highly defensive contractual positions the parties might be taking. It just brings everything right back to reality. Alternatively, we have the Dispute Resolution Advisor, or DRA. This is a brilliant system pioneered and heavily utilized in Hong Kong. Now, while a DRB might evaluate the technical merits to make a recommendation, the DRA focuses heavily on facilitation. They act almost like a project mediator, maintaining open communication to help parties diagnose issues early and find their own practical settlement pathways. In the DRA process, if you look at the timeline, the system allocates the bulk of its energy, literally almost half, to site-level negotiations. It's a multi-tiered system that pushes extremely hard for a settlement at the lowest possible level.
It only escalates to senior staff if those fail, and then, only as an absolute last resort, does it culminate in short-form arbitration. So, picture Sarah. She's acting as the DRA on a really tense project. Before an argument turns into a formal notice of dispute, she steps right in to facilitate a structured issue resolution meeting. She guides the team away from their old adversarial habits and pulls them directly into constructive, sustained problem solving. Section 3, Megaproject Vignettes in Action. Let's see how this all translates into actionable success on the ground. Consider a major infrastructure endeavor, say a massive tunnel project similar to the Eisenhower Memorial Tunnel. You are dealing with severe geological uncertainty, incredibly tight access constraints, and just immense safety pressures. The entire environment is literally a powder keg for conflict. But by pairing specific interventions to those risks, like having the DRB conduct early issue reviews the second geological surprises happen, and clarifying practical options for access, those technical disagreements over work sequencing are resolved super fast on site. The board narrows the issues down before the parties can dig their heels in and, actually stop the boring machines. Now imagine a totally different environment. A massive desalination plant, much like the Sydney Desalination Project. Here, the pressures aren't just geological. They are driven by intense water security urgency, incredibly complex design coordination, and really heavy public accountability. In this scenario, the preventative medicine focuses heavily on relationships. The continuous presence of the board fosters really positive working relations. They make sure that the immense pressure of those commissioning deadlines doesn't completely destroy the relationship between Ms. Carter, the client representative, and the lead contractors. Regular visits and frank discussions keep everyone's focus on building the actual project, not building a legal case.
Section 4. Interrupting the escalation path.
The absolute magic of this entire process happens right at the tipping point of a conflict. Dispute avoidance processes act as a deliberate circuit breaker. They completely interrupt that destructive path from conflict toward formal disputes, arbitration, and litigation. They step in exactly when the sparks start flying, way before the fire spreads.
Section 5. Making dispute avoidance work. Now, setting up these boards isn't just some automatic fix. You can't just sign a piece of paper and magically have a harmonious site. It takes strict adherence to best practices. To make DAPs genuinely work, project teams have to follow a checklist. You've got to appoint your neutrals early, ideally before construction even starts. You have to schedule regular site visits so they aren't strangers. And you absolutely have to share records transparently and record issues the moment they appear. It's a full commitment to a collaborative culture. On the flip side, there are some massive red flags you need to watch out for. If you have late appointments, like the board is only called in after the relationship has already soured, or if there's poor record access, deep party distrust, and weak senior leadership support, well, the preventative medicine is going to fail. The patient will reject the cure because that foundational trust just isn't there. Dispute avoidance works because it treats the conflict while it's still manageable. Identify early, discuss openly, document clearly, and resolve before escalation. As we picture our Megaproject team finally reaching an early settlement before formal proceedings, I want to leave you with a final thought for your own work. Based on the contracts and cultures you're building today, are you preparing for war on your next project, or are you actively preparing to prevent it?